Happy Thursday, everybody. Happy spring. See, I got my spring clothes on. Okay, so where are we? Tonight we're talking about forgiveness. Before I get into that, let me just see if I have any updates for anyone who's asked me on Facebook or questions like that. Okay, so my groups, I have two groups available. I think they're 15th or something. It's on philquinn.com. Thank you for everybody else who signed up for the groups. But tonight I want to talk about an important topic. And it's a question that I get throughout my readings, and I've gotten it throughout the years that I have been doing readings. And the topic is about forgiveness. And how do I forgive and move forward? How do I not allow that person to rent space in my head any longer? How do I stop the thoughts about the person who hurt me or betrayed me or devastated my life in any way or took away somebody that I loved or cared about, why it was an accident, or we can go on and go on about how much grief or forgiveness can interpret into many different ways. But tonight I'm going to try to keep it general in the sense of how to move forward and why it's important to forgive somebody. And in order to forgive somebody, first of all, anybody that tells you that they've forgiven someone and it's just happened over a few days, you aren't really hurt. I'm talking about betrayal. I'm talking about, obviously this topic may apply to me right now, but I recently experienced this in my life, so that's why I can actually talk about it. And I do not discuss topics, or I try not to discuss topics that I haven't personally gone through myself. Obviously, there's some that I simply just can't go through being a man. But the bottom line here is, how do you forgive somebody and let go of the feeling of betrayal or disappointment or hatred or anger or fear or whatever it is that you're experiencing? And why should I let that go? Why on earth would I forgive that person so that I don't have to have this anger any longer? Why would I look at this person with joy? Well, the one thing about spirituality, and the thing that I learned about this in the part of forgiveness, is you have to accept things, the situation for what it is, number one. Secondly, I had to take responsibility for my part in the situation. Why I overgave, or I overestimated, or I overpromised, or whatever the situation may be for somebody. But I had to take responsibility for my part in this. And then the second part comes into this is, why would I then forgive the individual who betrayed me, hurt me, or whatever the situation may be? It's so that I can move forward and have healing in my life and not allow that person to rent space in me any longer. And the important part about this is, when someone hurts you, you think about it constantly, over and over and over again. And you realize that you get yourself in what I call the loop. And the loop is, you start off thinking about it, you go into rage, you go into burnout, and then we're back into, I think about the person again. So this could be a sister, this could be a parent, this could be a friend, this could be anything. And the reason why we want to let go is because as long as I'm in that loop, I can't be part of my important part of my life. And that being my family, Jasper, all of those things, my job, the things that I love. But as long as someone else is taking up my thoughts, I can't be part of my family's life because my heart is somewhere else and it's rageful at that other person. Secondly, it's draining to the point where it will make you sick. I guarantee you the person that hurt you doesn't lose sleep at night. And I know that sounds crass, but they don't. So, because you're completely unaware of it a lot of the times. And then secondly, the reason why we get hurt is unspoken expectations. Meaning that if you're helping out a friend, or if you're hoping to date somebody, or you're hoping that you don't verbalize your expectations aren't met, you get angry and rageful, and now you have a dislike or a hatred or contempt against that person. So we have to look at our side of it, and then we have to look at the point of, why on earth would I forgive? Now, this is a broad topic, but for me, I learned that forgiveness, and again, this was a long journey, this did not happen overnight. So the forgiveness, why it was so important, was I was stuck on my path. Again, that yellow brick road. I wasn't moving. I wasn't making any decisions. I kept looking back on, what did I do wrong in order for this outcome to come like this? And then I started to take responsibility off the individual that I had felt hurt by and taken all the responsibility on myself. It was my fault. It was my doing. Had I have stood by there long enough, something else would have taken place, or this outcome wouldn't have taken place. So self-forgiveness, as we've talked about in our previous situations, our videos, is very, very important. But also forgiving somebody that hurts you is very important. But most importantly, just because you forgive someone doesn't mean they have to be a part of your life. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean that you welcome them back to the table. It just means that you're accepting that person for who they are, and you can love them from a distance. Sometimes forgiving someone means that you have to cut them out of your life. Sometimes forgiving somebody is that you can't have a conversation with them because you know it's never going to get you anywhere. And sometimes forgiving somebody is walking away from the situation and saying, this argument is going to do nothing. The only thing it's going to do is fuel the other person's rage and create more drama. But you can forgive someone and then not be part of your life. And that was the decision that I had to make in my life. Meaning that the person could be in the peripheral, if you choose them to be, or absolutely remove them from your life. Or you can just keep touch base depending on what the situation may be. So I have a lot of people that struggle with forgiveness because they don't know where to begin. And also, when you don't forgive, again, shuts off your crown chakra, and this prevents communication from coming through. It prevents you from moving forward. And most importantly, for people that have been in a marriage or had an affair, been cheated on, or so on and so forth, the heart chakra then shuts down, and then the next person that's coming around, we're going to impose it onto them. So if we don't forgive the person that hurt us, we really can't move forward in our path. But always remember this, and I try to live my life by this, and I think I said this before. You cannot fix something you did not cause. So if I date somebody who was previously cheated on, and I think that I can cure them, I am not only wasting my time, but I am going to get hurt. The only person that can cure the pain is the individual that did the damage. And sometimes we do not get responses back from the individual that does the damage. We do not care if we get the sorries or the groveling or whatever it may be, because that simply may be lip service. The bottom line is, can you forgive and move forward with your life without worrying about this person being in your life? Some people may jump in here tonight and say, Phil, how do I walk away from my kid? How do I walk away from my mother, my husband, or whoever it may be? But the bottom line here is, if we're talking about forgiveness, it's first self-forgiveness and then forgiving the person for the harm they did to you, meaning that I'm not going to carry this with me on a daily basis and let it dominate everything that I do. And I often meet people who say, I can't move forward. I don't know how to get into a new relationship. I hate this person at work. I despise this individual. They do this, they do that. I have rage with them. And then what happens is you come home and you've no outlet for that rage. So then it typically goes to family members, friends, whoever it may be. So what we have to do is understand that I can't fix that person. I can't change that person, but I can change my response to that person. And negative people love negative responses. They do not know what to do with positive responses. So if you have a negative coworker, or if you're in a situation where you're working with people and it's always negative, the best response is a positive response. But don't get sucked in, because that's exactly what they want you to do. Remember, saboteur. I'm going to sabotage your will and your communication, your ability to move forward. So the damage is often repeated over and over again. Stay stuck. Anyway, sorry. So I'm reading through some of your questions here again. So one of the reasons why we want to, and I'm just going to answer that question, is one of the other reasons why we want to self-forgive is, somebody just brought it up, if you don't forgive, you do the same thing over and over and over again. You will reinvite the same people, the same relationships, the same situations into your life over and over again until spiritually you get it. And that's the whole purpose of why we come to Earth, is to evolve and to grow. Jasper has a question.
Why should I let the person who ruined my life off the hook?
So, why should I let the person who ruined my life off the hook? Great question. And here's the reason why. They ruined your life. And that's it. They've already ruined your life. The thing is, you're trying to get them to recognize that they've ruined your life, or they've hurt your life, or they've damaged your life, or they've done whatever. So the bottom line is, you're not letting them off the hook. You're removing them from your mental daily activity that you're saying to yourself, I hate this person, I can't stand this person, they hurt me. You're eliminating from your life so you can have a life. Because when someone hurts you, they'll just move on. They just move on, and they're going to hurt another person. But you're stuck with the resentment, and that's what we want to let go. And remember, things happen. You're growing up. Parents, make bad choices. We know what we did. But what we're talking about is people that consciously hurt us. Go ahead, Jasper.
Linda asks, so is forgiveness acceptance that something happened but not really letting go of what was done? Or just changing what you think about what happened or what was done?
It's not changing about what you think about what happened. It's looking at what your part was in it, and then the response back to you. And what you're doing is you're forgiving the person for their limited capacity and whatever the situation may be. So I'm trying to come up with a good example here, but I do have people that come in. I'll give you an example. I have a lot of people that come in and their spouse may have cheated on them or so on and so forth. And the other individual wants to know the details of the affair. So then the spouse decides, okay, let me share this. This is going to make the person feel better. So then that resentment is building, and now the person keeps throwing the affair up in their spouse's face. Well, either we're moving forward and getting help with this, or we're going to keep playing this game. Let me see how much I can hurt you and torture you, but really the only thing you're doing is hurting and torturing yourself. So because the act is already done. So part of the healing process is forgiving what was done to you and only owning what you did. That's it. And you may have done nothing. There's a lot of people who have done nothing to deserve. There's a lot of good people that get screwed over on a daily basis who've done absolutely nothing. But what we don't want is that negative person dominating your life because you're a good person and that you're going to carry that with you on a daily basis. I meet so many people who did all the right things and still got screwed over. So let's not forget that. Go ahead, Jasper.
How do I know if I've truly forgiven someone? How would I feel?
They no longer have power over your thoughts. And that's the one thing that I realized is that before I was able to forgive this individual that I'm personally talking about, is that before I was able to forgive them, it dominated my thoughts. Where did I go wrong? How did I mess up? Why did I not see this? So on and so forth. So then one day when I realized, what am I responsible for? And then the person, again, I'm going back, Brendan's on here. As he once said to me, Brendan Lebanera once said, you cannot accelerate another person's personal growth. And as much as I was trying to accelerate it and the person didn't respond well, the only way for me to let go is to realize that not only was I pushing, but the person was taking. And they no longer control my thoughts. Each day will go by and I think about that less and less. And that's how you know the person no longer has control over you. And this is kind of a hot topic, but the way you know that someone doesn't have control over you is you think about them less. Go ahead, Jasper.
Corinne says, my first husband, who was an alcoholic, who abused me physically and verbally. He did so much damage that I can't let go, even though I'm now married to a great man. I can't forgive him and still feel so much hatred. How do I let this go?
Well, and here's the thing. The first question that I would ask myself, Quinn, is how do I let this go? Is what good is it serving you by holding on to your hatred and rage? I'll tell you what it does. Holding on to hatred and rage keeps us stuck. It's a reason not to evolve. It's a reason not to move forward. It's a reason not to follow through in our careers. It's a reason not to get into a new relationship. It's a reason not to do any of this. We can turn resentment into any reason not to move forward in our life. I have a perfect life. I have a husband that loves me, so on and so forth, as you're saying, but yet I'm still letting this person dominate my thoughts. Well, you don't want that. You don't want that. And that's what it comes down to, is the only reason you haven't forgiven is because you're not ready to forgive. And that's the part that we want to let go of, is that this individual has no control over who I am or what my life has become. Go ahead, Jasper.
Give me 1 second. How does forgiving someone help me? What if I don't want to forget what happened?
So it's not about forgetting what happens, because if we forget what happens, we're going to repeat the lesson again. So that's an essential thing. You don't want to forget the lesson. Or you don't want to forget what happens. What you want to do is forgive what happened, because if you don't forgive what happened, it's going to happen again. Meaning that the universe is going to constantly throw it in your face. So I meet people that, children of alcoholics will date alcoholics. People who grew up in abused households date abusers, so on and so forth. And they don't know how to get out of the loop. And the only way to get out of the loop is to say that I have worth. I have meaning. I have more than what I'm being treated to do. But what happens is people get out of the relationship, they forget about what took place, and then they get back into the same situation again. So they're not applying the lesson that was learned. Go ahead.
So how do I get through forgiveness if the person walked out unscathed by the situation?
So people walk out unscathed in a situation. You got hurt, the other person doesn't get any pain whatsoever, and we have a resentment. We have karma waiting to come around and get them. We have something waiting to come around the door to do this here. The thing is, and I'm going to go back to my original spiritual statement, is we have to accept the circumstances for what they are at that time. Meaning that we don't know what's going to happen down the line, but what I do know is I'm not going to allow somebody who didn't do right by me or didn't love me the way they thought that they should have, to dominate my thoughts. And that's the key to what I'm talking about, is we want no one to dominate our thoughts. If you had a condescending parent or a parent to constantly put you down, the committee in between your head is always going to be condescending thoughts. We don't want to bring that into our present. We don't want to bring that into our future. We want to realize that that's their damage that they're projecting onto me. Because again, as we talk through our chakra videos, we're trying to undo everybody else's baggage that they projected onto us and find our own. Go ahead, Jasper.
Catherine asks, can you ever completely forgive a person for who they are inherently, or can you only forgive people for certain actions or events they took against you?
So you can forgive people on any level that you want. Some people want to forgive people for the situation that took place and hold on to part of the resentment. And then other people, Catherine, want to let go of the entire thing. So I think what you're saying is, can I partly love someone and hate somebody? Absolutely. You can do anything that you want. But the thing here is, you have to ask yourself is, how is it serving me in my day-to-day activities? Is it holding me back, or is it hurting me? Is it betraying me? Is it keeping me stuck? Hello, Monica. I'm glad to see that you're okay. So that's really what it's about. Go ahead, Jasper.
Kim says, I have cut ties with my late husband's parents because of how rude they treated me while he was sick and after his death. But I have such guilt because they are his parents. How do I get past this guilty feeling?
This is a common situation that I get in my office a lot, Kim, is that during the passing of someone or a parent, so really what you have to do is what's right for you and only you. And that's what it comes down to, is if you have a relationship with them is toxic and it's holding you back and it doesn't allow you to be the person that you want to be, then you just simply have to move forward. I never said this was easy. I never said that letting go was going to be simple. I never said that letting and forgiving was going to be a breeze. But what you have to ask yourself on a daily basis is this serving me in a positive way or a negative way? Because if it's serving you in a negative way, you have to say to yourself, then I don't want to evolve and I don't want to move forward. Most of us don't want to forgive because we would have to admit that we did something wrong. And in order to admit that we did something wrong, we have to take the responsibility in, I had a part in this whole situation. I could have left, I could have did this, I could have did that. But it's nice to remain the victim. It's nice to feel like you got screwed over and the other person walked away, but it's really not. It keeps you locked down on a level that you don't want to be in because you're going to do the same thing over again. Go ahead, Jasper.
These two last questions kind of have to do with each other.
Okay.
Maritza says, what if all you ever did was show love and give love, took care of everyone, and yet the same person finds a way to knock them down every time? I have forgived, but it keeps happening. Then Kathleen asks, can you forgive a person and still not be involved in their life anymore?
So, you can forgive a person and not be involved in their life whatsoever. You can forgive someone, accept it for what it is, remove yourself from the situation and say, that's it. I can't have them in my life because having them in my life brings out the negative. So it's again, the whole point of forgiveness is about you moving forward so the person's behaviors don't dominate your daily life. And that's what it comes down to. Because and I'm not sure how to answer that previous question to this, but one of the things that I've known about forgiveness is when you do forgive, the weight that comes off you psychologically, almost it's like when you drop it, you come unhinged. Like you sob and you cry and you go through this whole process. You go through this grief process because that's what it feels like. And as you go through this grief process, you're letting go and shedding all of this weight that you realize that I don't need it in my life in order to have a happy life. Go ahead, Jasper.
Kathy says, I really needed this today. Torn with emotions. Helped and supported a friend who became sober, but has started back with the same people, places, and things again, which I don't want to be around them and their company they keep now. How do I handle this?
So, Kathy, I'm going to tell you the same thing that was told to me. That person will get you drunk before you will get them sober. So you distance yourself, and that's what's kept me where I am today. Meaning that throughout my years of helping people, that person's not ready to get clean. What they're doing in their life, don't focus on. Focus on your own situation. Focus on your own life and moving forward. But we cannot change another person's actions. You can distance yourself to soften the blow, but putting yourself in there is not going to be good. They'll do you harm before you get them help. Go ahead, Jasper.
Mike says, I've had bad things happen and completely forgotten about them, and once in a while they resurface like a light bulb going off. Why does this happen, and how do we work on these?
So when these bulbs start going off, it's coming from the fact that your crown chakras open up, Mike, and you're starting to see things. The lessons are starting to apply. You're starting to see what's going on. You're starting to get through this. You're starting to say, oh, I'm connecting all the dots, and that's why this actually feels like it's happening. I want to go back to one of the other things that I just said here real quick, was about the co-worker situation. People are all on top of each other. They have anger. They have rage. What happens is that's sent out into the atmosphere, into the energy of the room, that then builds and builds and builds. And then if we don't have a way to let this resentment go, we take this back to our house. And that's the part where I'm telling people is that we don't want to take this back into the house. We don't want to bring the negativity of the outside into your temple. You want to keep your temple as pure and as grounded as possible. So, meaning that I don't bring my job home. When I come home, I'm Phil. When I'm in the office, I'm a medium. So I try to keep that balance. But again, I've gone through this process recently. I've learned how to forgive. It was a very painful process, but also is very cathartic in order to do so. And one of the things that I have noticed is that individual no longer takes up my thoughts. And secondly, it was a huge sigh of relief, realizing that I was not responsible for the other person's actions. Go ahead, Jasper.
But, so isn't it terrible to cut an abusive child or parent out of your life?
Isn't it terrible to cut an abusive child or parent out of your life? No. The word abusive was in there. So what you're telling me is you want to keep an abusive person in your life. No, you can distance yourself and still have them in your life. But I'll give you an example. If the parent is alcoholic and you have to deal with the parent, you can still deal with the parent, meaning if you're the caregiver, whatever it may be, but you do it from a distance. You set strict boundaries. This is what it is and how it is. If you have a child that is giving you problems or whatever, and you've done all that you can do, and you can't do any more, then you have to back off because your way of doing things simply isn't working. So we have to try a new tactic. So it's not about simply elimination, although there are circumstances where elimination is a necessity in order for us to heal. But we're talking about if somebody is abusive to you, end of story. Because now you're teaching them that it's okay to treat you like a doormat. Like, if you hear the word abusive in the conversation, it's time to bounce. Go ahead, Jasper.
Beth says, I can distance myself from situations, but my mind keeps playing the tape over and over. How can we change the channel and not keep coming back?
So, remove yourself, delete social media, meaning that if the person that hurt you or whatever, or any response to them, you see them on social media, remove them from social media. Remove from, Jasper had a great word, triggers. Any triggers that would bring you or thinking back to that person. You want to remove and desensitize yourself from any of those things. Hi, Katie. Thank you for the happy birthday on my cell phone. I have not gotten back to you, but I was thinking about texting you. Go ahead, Jasper.
So on the topic of forgiveness, on the reverse side, what about those situations where you were just completely not in the right state of mind? Let's say that you were on drugs or you were doing stuff that you weren't supposed
So
to.
if somebody does somebody in an altered state, and you can easily forgive that. If somebody's doing something constantly in an altered state, you're then co-signing the behavior. And that's the difference. So if somebody gets drunk and they get rowdy at a party and they make a fool of themselves, that's one thing. But if you have somebody who is repetitively doing the same thing over and over again, you are co-signing this, you're allowing this to happen, and you're saying it's okay for this behavior to take place. So there's two different scenarios that go on with that. Hi, Vicky. How you doing? Go ahead, Jasper.
So in that situation, how do you allow yourself to be forgiven if you've made a life-changing event?
So how do you allow yourself to be forgiven? How do you allow yourself to be forgiven? Allowing yourself to be forgiven is that if the other person truly forgives you, you're not responsible for the other person's response. So, meaning that if you say sorry to somebody and they tell you to get lost, that's it. You've done your bit. The rest of it's up to them. So, but allowing yourself to be forgiven is self-love. So if you've hurt somebody and you truly care about the other individual, you'll do anything that it takes in order to show this person that you either hurt them, it was accidental, it wasn't intentional, or whatever it may have been. But in order to be forgiven yourself, you have to love yourself in order to allow the other person to come back into your life and to love you or forgive you or whatever the situation may be. Go ahead, Jasper.
I'm just going over some quotes of what people said. Shannon said, it feels like an actual physical weight has been left. It's a great feeling when you forgive.
When you forgive, it is an amazing sensation because you realize that this person has taken up so many years of my life, so many months of my life, so many, whatever it may be, but years, and that this big monster wasn't a monster at all. I was just young. I just didn't know any better. I was just being controlled. Again, if you don't have information, you can't blame yourself for not knowing. So that's another way for self-forgiveness. If I didn't know at the time, then I can't beat myself up. I can't hurt myself. I can't lower myself. And the other thing is, too, is we never want to, you know, some people beg for forgiveness. But forgiveness, if you're going to let somebody back into your life, their actions say everything. And that's really what it comes down to, not the words.
So in that situation, what if you do get an apology and it's just not enough?
Then that's what I got. I got an apology that simply wasn't enough, and I moved forward. And meaning that the apology couldn't rectify what took place. So what I did is I can love from a distance. I don't wish you any harm, and I hope you're well. So I hope this was helpful tonight, guys. Thank you all again for tuning in. And I don't know what next week's topic's going to be, but again, I try to choose topics that are relevant for everybody, and I try to choose topics that you can work on to try and help better yourself on a daily basis.
Wait,
so
I want to ask one question.
Jasper,
that's really good.
Jasper, go ahead, Jasper.
Karen asks, but what if the person is family that keeps hurting you, and the rest of your family thinks you should just not let it bother you?
So, what if the person's family and they keep hurting you? And the rest of the family tells you, don't be bothered by it. You stop being around the person that is hurting you. Because what you're trying to do is to get the rest of the family to realize that this person is hurting me and confront them. And ultimately, the person that is hurting you is probably the more dominant person in the family, and no one is going to confront them. So what you do is distance yourself, because keeping yourself safe is all that matters. If you've become the family punching bag, you get out. You get out. You just protect yourself, and that is the most important part about this, is you protect yourself. You don't owe anyone else anything. But the bottom line here is that if you are the family punching bag and your family doesn't support you, then you back off and you don't come around to functions. You don't do these things. But to continuously go back hoping that you're going to change the mind, you're giving the exact thing to the person that is hurting you what they want. And we're not going to do that. We're not doormats. Those days are over. We're not going to let anybody treat us poorly. We're not going to let anybody treat us with disrespect. We're going to love ourselves. And by loving ourselves, we can then confront any situation that comes around that we don't have to curtail to other people's place. But we are not going to give adulation to people that is unnecessary or don't deserve it. Or if I say this to my kid, then something bad's going to happen. Remember, put yourself first, everyone else second. And that is the way that we go through spirituality. I know that sounds selfish, but it's not. If you're healthy, you can help all the people that are around you. and keep that in mind. But anytime you hear the word abuse, anytime you hear negative words being used to you, you don't belong in that situation, and try to extricate yourself from it. I understand not every situation is easy. You can't simply just walk out the door. People have kids, so on and so forth. But we can start the healing process by loving ourselves and forgiving the other individual so that we can move through. Thank you all again for tuning in. I appreciate everybody. I will see you next Thursday. Anyone that's feel free to come up with a topic or throw anything out, and I'm happy to talk about it. So I will be back next Thursday. Jasper, do you have anything to say?
Oh no, I was just reading Shannon's nice comment. She said your Thursday nights have given me so much self-power. Thank you.
Yay! That's all I want. That's all I want. I want people to be able to help themselves and to move forward and not feel reliant on anybody or everyone around them, and you just have self-strength. I love you all. I'll see you next Thursday. Thanks so much.